So then, young man, how's your research on Gregor Herschel going? Well, I've been doing a bit of my own research, and I've discovered that he traveled widely in his younger days. That he stayed in England and made 2 separate trips to the east. But for some strange reason, he shunned the company of men. Although he never turned away a guest, very few folk were able to find a word to say to him. Have a word with Blackfish. He'll tell you all about it. He lives in that small house down there.
Mr. Blackfish? Well, I won't beat around the bush. I've come to ask you to tell me about Gregor Herschel.
My friend, have you not forgotten something?
Such as...
Do you have nothing to awl the tongue?
I do not, sir.
Then get the hell out of here.
Well...
Yeah, that's right. Make yourself scarce.
Well, I don't want to offend
Well,
you.
okay, if you want to chat, bring some supplies. Why don't you come back later?
Crumb and Son, at your service.
Excuse me, sir. Do you have something strong that'll cheer up a miserable fisherman?
You mean hooch? How about this stuff? This isn't easy to come by, the way things are these days. There are stock problems, and the suppliers are taking advantage. Not to mention the insurers. Yep, it all has effect on the price. But what the hell? I'm not in it for the money. I provide a service to my good customers, if they show their appreciation.
Here, will that be enough?
Well, I'll be damned. You are a good customer, sir. I like people who show their appreciation. If you're in need of anything else at all, my pleasure, sir.
Y'all got the firewater, lad?
Here, and it's good stuff, too.
Good. So, do y'all know that at the time terrible things were being said about Gregor Herschel? He wasn't one to shy away from crime, and he must have made masses of dough. Everyone here has their reasons to look out for customs, my lad. At the time, the local businessman wanted to make a fast profit at any cost. Vessels would arrive in the bay at night, brigs and caravels overflowing with contraband, and secretly come ashore. You get the picture? Except that his cargo consisted of blacks from Guinea. They used to unload them to the north of Pawtuxet. There was a prison down there, a big stone building. At first, everything went fine. He wasn't the only one doing it, see? Except that one day it wasn't just blacks. On that day, the Navy were out for blood because of a Coast Guard ship that had burned. The Liberty. They spied a big merchant ship with its lights doused, heading for Nakiet Point. They followed it, then boarded her. Ah, good God. I'd like to have seen the face of the customs officer when he saw the cargo. It was Egyptian mummies. I'll bet he was well annoyed, because of course they were not illegal. As for the mummies, no one knew what they were for, my lad. Do you see what kind of things he was up to?
Mummies, huh? What a strange thing to smuggle.
That ain't the half of it. You know, the strangest thing of all was how often he used to replace his sailors. One crew would go on shore leave, some of them were laden with goods. And when it was time to sail again, there were always 2 or 3 men missing. The sailors are superstitious beggars. The tough sailors from the slave ships, pirate vessels, and the huge brigs of Brown, Crawford, and Tillinghast would make the sign of the cross when they saw the old man going into his warehouse in Doubloon Street. His mates and his captain detested him, but they were tied to him by the grip of fear. Nobody wanted to sail with him no more. His crews were made up of mixed-race sailors from Havana, Martinique, and Port Royal. Oh yes, the port of Providence has seen goings-on strange enough to make your blood run cold. Not more than 1 month later, 3 likely lads, not the type to miss a voyage, were due to set sail on the Gaita. They'd been seen the night before, but the next day, not a trace. The sheriff turned up with his deputies, the redcoats, and they took the place apart looking for alcohol. That's right. They didn't give a damn about the lads. Then Smith was asked to put a notice in his newspaper, but there was no response. I'm pleased you take an interest in these things, but you need more detail to get a clear picture. Tell you what, I know a lad who can tell you all you need to know. Arthur Prokop. At this time of day, you'll find him in the Royal Standard. It's 20 yards back towards the church there. Tell him I sent you.
Thank you, sir. I'll find it.
See you again, sailor.
I was sent here by Mr. Blackfish. I'm looking for information about Gregor Herschel, a colonial shipowner.
Well, you've come to the right place, my lord. It so happens that my father's great-grandfather, Milius Prokop, had close dealings with him. I should have some documents passed on to me by my father. Give me a little time to look. Let's say tomorrow. Same time, same place.
It's been so long.
I'm here to see how you are. When you came to my house 2 days ago,
I'm sorry, my memory fails me frequently.
When you came to my house, you seemed very disturbed, as if you were in some danger.
Forget anything I said to you. I was upset. Let's forget it.
Dr. Eagleton is worried about your health. So is your father. Edgar, are you sure everything's fine?
I'm relying on you to reassure them. Everything's fine now. Allow me to introduce you to my colleague, Dr. Owens.
Valenti non fiduciaria. Don't forget what we must do, Mr. Wycherley. Age quod agius. I shall await you in the bungalow.
I'll leave you to your work, Edgar.
William, goodbye. Please be so kind as to give my regards to Mr. Eagleton and inform him that you yourself have observed that everything here is fine.
Hello, Dr. Eagleton? I've seen Edgar recently. He really does seem very disturbed.
Please stay at home. If you don't mind, I'm going to come and see you. We'll be able to speak about it more easily.
Hello, Doctor. You wish to have my opinion. I'm sorry to tell you that I found my friend far from his old self. At first, he didn't recognize me. He introduced me to Dr. Owens, who was even stranger than Edgar. As I was leaving, he seemed to be crying out for help. Then he proceeded to address me formally using a highly outmoded style of language. I am truly mystified. Could you enlighten me as to the exact nature of his research?
The first thing Edgar discovered amongst the papers of several Providence families was mail addressed to Gregor Herschel or written by him. These letters had been intercepted by the local population with the hope of finding out what he was up to. Then he found Herschel's work documents. Edgar revealed to me one day that the papers of his ancestor contained some incredible scientific secrets, for the most part written in a coded language, and that he was trying to acquire the ancient arts needed to understand what it was all about. He then explained to me that he was scouring the cemeteries for the gravestone of Gregor Herschel, which should bear an inscription made up of mystical symbols that he needed to decipher the manuscript.
The odd thing was that I had the impression that he didn't speak freely.
I fear that he's under the influence of this Dr. Owens. There's only one way to guarantee his safety, to have him committed. Thank you for your valuable help, William. Continue your investigations, my boy. We need to know what lies behind all this.
Good day, Mr. Wycherley. If I may be so bold, I would like very much to look at Edgar's research papers.
But of course, come on in. Yesterday, Dr. Eagleton spoke to me of the psychological problems Edgar is suffering from, and which, in his opinion, are partly connected to his studies. On returning from his travels, Edgar generally shut himself up in his room to work. He used to lock himself in and under no circumstances could be disturbed. He was deciphering photographic copies of an ancient manuscript. Then he began to get interested in chemistry and to hang around cemeteries. The acrid odors that sometimes came from his room were becoming truly intolerable. Edgar seemed to have gone out of his mind, letting out shrieks and having conversations when there was nobody there. On the 15th of April, I remember the date because it was Good Friday. Mrs. Wycherley was listening anxiously in the corridor to strange chants in foreign tongues and a series of syllables ending in ya, whereupon she fainted. That evening we had a lengthy conversation in the office, during which I warned him that, whatever the purpose of his research, I could no longer tolerate such conduct. It was on that day that he resolved to move to Pawtuxet. His room is upstairs, William. We have left it just as it was on the day he left.